The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines deconstructivism as an architectural movement or style influenced by deconstruction that encourages radical freedom of form and the open manifestation of complexity in a building rather than strict attention to functional concerns and conventional design elements such as right angles or grids. Deconstructivism is a relatively recent invention which appeared in the 1980s and is described as a postmodern architectural movement. It includes the elements of fragmentation of the constructed building and the absence of obvious harmony, continuity, or symmetry. This design method challenges common design aspects such as harmony and consistency by fracturing, distorting, and disrupting geometric shapes. According to Novato, deconstructivist buildings can be seen to have elements such as ambiguous and complex geometries, nonlinear shapes, and unusual material combinations. Modern architecture is said to produce cold and detached designs that are born from logic and have a focus on finality and structure. In contrast, deconstructivism questions these traditions and creates more expressive and emotionally engaging buildings that better reflect the surrounding culture and social leanings of time. This represents a break from the normal design ideas and a rejection of restrictions imposed by these ideas. To give the movement some context, it is important to note that the 1970s had enormous social change, including the gay liberation movement and the first female Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. The gay liberation movement grew and succeeded in the 1970s, battling for equal rights for the LGBTQ community and the decriminalizations of homosexuality. Even though Canada, England, and Wales had successfully decriminalized homosexuality, the US was yet to do so, with the American Psychiatric Association only removing homosexuality from its psychiatric disorder list in 1973. Many people became more open about these concepts, even though same-sex marriage would not become legal everywhere in America until 2015. That was a mouthful. Most of the world also moved from a time of war to a time where peace was prioritized. The anti-war movement expanded quickly in the United States, with people protesting the war for both economic and moral reasons. People became more aware of the growing number of casualties and spiking costs produced by wars, and were starting to become aware that war was not a sensible option. I believe that these ideas of acceptance and difference and peace are shown in deconstructivist architecture by the free-flowing shapes and the unique and different designs. Deconstructivism rebels against the modernist architecture that seemed to represent the previous years so well, and instead chose to embrace difference and strangeness. Deconstructivist designs seem to have personality and uniqueness at a level that was finally accepted in society. In summary, deconstructivism was established in the 1980s, just after the rise of modernism, as a protest against the straight lines and cold, simple designs. This reflected the social changes occurring in the period that had preceded its creation. Deconstructivism embraces creativity, and although some aspects are common, there is not really a rule book for what defines deconstructivism. There are many examples of this design category, although I would like to start by showing some of the work produced by Frank Gehry. This building by Frank Gehry shows interesting shapes and forms through the use of not only squares but also circles, spirals, triangles and trapeziums combined in such a way that they look like they have been taken off of other buildings and shoved together into one piece. I find this kind of composition inspiring and interesting. I don't know why, but everything seems to be a mouthful today. This building by Frank Gehry shows interesting proportion and shape through one part being huge and pentagon and the other part being small and rhomboid. This building by Frank Gehry shows rhythm through a flowing shape that suggests water or maybe a frog poised to leap, implying strong movement with subtle shapes and smooth lines. It also has a strong material and colour through brass-coloured mesh-like design. This building by Frank Gehry shows durability and stability by using a sturdy metal over the entire structure. It also shows rhythm via the shape almost looking like an explosion of parts. There is further movement implied via the texturing of the metal. This building by Frank Gehry, the Dancing House, shows asymmetrical balance by having the smaller part of the structure in a darker colour than the larger part. It also shows rhythm and movement through the smaller part appearing to lean fluidly on the larger part. This building by Frank Gehry shows a lack of rigidity by having flowing, tilting shapes that appear to be liquefying and or leaning on the other shapes. This is further emphasized by the reflective patterns and colors in the metal. This building by Frank Gehry shows strong color through the vibrant middle section, which also shows texture, hinting at a hammered metal look similar to what is used in metal cuffs or bracelets, and rhythm through the flowing shapes that they are almost liquid or fabric blowing in the wind. This building, which is also by Frank Gehry, shows contrast through not only color and material, but also through the straight lines of the brick portion contrasting with the curves of the metallic section. This gives the impression of water flowing over an object or block. This building by Frank Gehry shows interesting form by having shapes that appear to flow from an angle. There is a typo there somewhere. Continuing, but stick out at almost straight at other angles. It also gives the impression of someone with shaggy hair, or maybe a waterfall of metal engulfing the building, which further emphasizes the movement and rhythm of the piece. This building by Frank Gehry shows contrast through the differing colors and textures of red brick and what appears to be aluminium. The top part also shows rhythm, as it looks like it is balancing precariously on the bottom part. This building by Frank Gehry shows contrast by layering a spiky roof on top of a rounded building. It also hints at movement, as it kind of looks like flowing hair or rough water flowing over the roof. This building by Frank Gehry shows vibrant colour and contrast through using lots of different bold primary and secondary colours and non-conforming origami-like shapes. This building by Frank Gehry shows vibrant colour through the roof, but also harmony through these colours using similar colours that seem to flow into one another. However, pieces by other designers are equally as impressive. This bridge by Santiago Calabatra uses line through the design being one continuous line with a slight curve, suggesting a feeling of peace. It also uses symmetry, being presumably perfectly identical on both sides. One part is hidden in the trees, so I cannot say for sure, but the rest of the piece is symmetrical, so I'm guessing the rest of it is. This gives the impression of balance and strength. This building, by an unnamed architect, shows colour hinting at a theme through the red, orange and purple metals, suggesting maybe a space theme, maybe Mars. This inspiring structure gives the impression of movement through disintegration or melting, making it a prime example of deconstructivism. This building, also by an unnamed architect, shows contrast by combining triangular window shapes with a round building and reminds me of an upside-down, colourful Colosseum. The contrast is further emphasised by these bold colours and bright red hues. This showcase by Hans Graben shows inconformity by combining shapes that may be ordinary in ways that make them unorthodox and strange. Some of these pieces almost look like they are alive as a result. For example, beware the couch crocodile. This design by Dana Lorange shows unusual form and shape by combining simple cubes into a shape that you would never expect, and adding an unusual number of legs to add to this unusual and deliberately asymmetrical theme. This table by Fredriksen Stellund shows rhythm through hinting at movement with the base, which almost looks like crinkling tinfoil. The metallic surface uses unique reflective properties to add to the drama of this piece. This chair by Viviane Volavris, her name is really hard to pronounce, shows contrast through having a ribbon-like shape but using sturdy concrete as a material. It also uses severe shadowing in the image to emphasize this industrial quality. From what I can discern from my images, deconstructivist designs usually combine two or more of shape, rhythm, proportion, color, contrast, durability, unrigidity, and inconformity to create pieces which have no rules and are whimsical and unique. Deconstructivism also commonly uses shapes that look like they have been broken off of other designs / buildings and combined, hence the name. Although my Google search did not tell me why deconstructivism is rare, you can fairly easily figure it out by why most average buildings are built in the way that they are. So here are some reasons that I have come up with as to why deconstructivism is so rare. 1. A lot of the shapes used in deconstructivism are hard to build, like wavy lines and half spheres. These shapes are hard to make fundamentally because they are not straight, and a lot of technology used for building is specialized for straight lines. 2. They are very asymmetric, and this can easily throw off balance, meaning that they need strong supports to stabilize them. 3. They are often made of materials that are very expensive to produce and build with. 4. Most of the pieces and fixtures in the buildings would have to be bespoke, meaning that they would be expensive and time-consuming to make. The building itself would also have to be bespoke, given its unique nature. Deconstructivism is one of my favorite design types, and I hope you enjoyed it too.